everybody, it's me, Laura, and today we're going to be doing some Stenciled Soutache jewelry. And you know, I was looking back and I was like, have I done Soutache? I haven't done Soutache. I'm like, well, what is this? Oh my goodness. So we're going to start off right away with some mud clay here. And that mud, I want to say, I rolled it up into a ball. It was close to 1¼ inches in diameter. And I'm going to cut this thing in half, and I'm only going to use half of it. I thought, you know, this stuff can get pretty big when I do my Soutache, so I thought, let's go ahead and just kind of, yeah. So anyways, I push this ball against the surface of my tile, and when I do, I get this little rounded kind of piece. And then I like to, with my 2 fingers, create that little point at the top there, so I get a teardrop form. Once I get that teardrop form created, I'm then going to take my blade here and just make sure all the edges are formed up really nice and neat, so I get a nice teardrop, a look that I really, really love. Once I have this teardrop all formed up to where I really like it, I will let my blade bring up this cabochon from the surface of my tile and then bring in a piece of my dark magenta clay. And this has been rolled out on a number 7 setting in my Atlas pasta machine. Once I have that laid down onto the clay, I'm just going to lightly put it down onto the tile, and then I'm going to bring in this Kyoker type stencil. I'm also bringing in my white heavy body Liquitex acrylic paint. Once I have this onto the paddle, I'll go ahead and just take the whole thing and cover it with this particular acrylic paint. Once I have that paint completely covered on this stencil, I'm going to gently lift this thing up off of the clay itself and make sure that, the thing is with the heavy body, the nice thing that I love about it is that it doesn't dry quite right away. And I still find that I get a better result from this than I do with that that looser kind of regular acrylic paint. I'm also cleaning off my stencil right away, okay? This is so you don't have any dried kind of acrylic paint that gets into the stencil and then it's ruined. So let's, make sure, make sure this gets cleaned off really well. Now that the paint has dried pretty well on the surface of this clay, I'm just taking off all the little extra of clay that I've got going on here. And even if it isn't quite dry, definitely take off the edges and everything. When you have this, then come in with your blade and get right under that particular sheet and lift it up off your tile. This, you really need to have this up off your tile, and then once you do, you're going to bring in that cabochon and you're just going to place this clay right over the top of it. Now, when I do this, I try to center up part of the pattern that I really like, and this way then it's like, oh yes, that looks so pretty. I get all excited about it. What can I say? And I'm going to just cut off any excess that I have going on around here. This is one reason why really this clay, or I should say the paint on here, needs to be completely dried. And then once you kind of form it around that cabochon, I just like to take my scissors or whatever blade you have. I like my little needlepoint scissors. It's so nice because it takes off any excess. And if I want to go ahead and use whatever I have left over for another project, I have that, so it's not completely ruined. And, because when you fold this clay over, it does kind of like to grab onto the other side, and then it's like, okay, I can't get that apart, and you got to just wad it up. I'm like, no, let's see if we could kind of hold off on some of that and, save that back for a little later. Anyways, I've got that formed around, and then I'm just patting it down so it's got a nice kind of flat part on the back side too. Once I have that together though, I'm going to bring in my clay gun, and oh yes, I'm excited about this. I have 3 different sized ribbon discs with the Sculpey clay gun, and on this particular cabochon, I'm going to go ahead and use that larger disc first. Now that I have that piece of black wrapped around onto the cab, I'm going to go ahead and just bring in one of these glass pearls that I have. And this is kind of like a very light magenta kind of pearl. And I'm going to wrap that clay that I have left over from the cab around on it. And once I have that centered at the top of that particular teardrop cabochon, I'm going to bring in the rest of my pearls, and I just have some regular black thread here, and I'm going to just start stringing them together on a strand of my black thread. And this really, to me, this makes so much sense. I mean, you could go ahead and place every single pearl right next to the cabochon and try to make it work. But here's the thing, I have no backing on this, okay? And that is done by design here. What I wanted to do was string a whole strand together, which to me makes it a whole lot simpler because it's all in a line and you can move it around a little bit on that thread, which I love because if you're going around kind of the circular form, you need to have a little give here and there for those pearls to kind of fit correctly. And I do kind of push the pearls into the clay on the side. It does help a little bit. It kind of gives you a sense of where it's going to go. I mean, you can then lift up the pearls a little bit, but it gives a little bit of an indent into that cabochon and into that black clay to know where it's going. But as you can see here, I'm just placing that down. I'm going to bring it around. Gives me an idea how it's going to form up. And I've got a little give on this. Once I do this though, once I got enough of those pearls together, I'm going to tie off the other end. All right. Now this takes a little bit of doing for me. I am not a sewing person. I try, but I'm doing good doing this. But I eventually get that strand because I was like struggling. I'm like, come on. Once I got this though, I thought, yay, finally, tied it off. Took me a couple of tries. Finally tied it off though. See what I mean? I'm getting around those pearls. So be careful when you do this. You can get off a little bit and it's like, ah. So anyway, tying it off so I have a little bit of give there. And then I'm going to cut off that end with my scissor. And then the nice thing about this is then I can take this strand of pearls, place it back around my cabochon. And like I said, you can tighten it. Don't tighten it too much though, because I like to have a little give. That really does help a lot. Anyways, I have this placed down. I do come in with my scissors and I try to take off any extra thread at the end, and then I place it down right up against the top of that cabochon. Once I have these pearls in place though, I can use my needle tool to kind of space them around the cabochon where it looks really, really nice. From there though, I'm then going to bring in my clay gun once more, and I'll go ahead and get some more of that ribbon and place that right around where I have those pearls. When I have that ribbon in place, I like to use my needle tool, just kind of like push it in, and this way then also the threads at the end, they don't show, right? When you have that in place though, I then come in with my Exacto knife and I cut off any excess and make sure it just gets butted up really nice and neat against that little top spiral, if you will, with that other single pearl in the center. Then I'll bring in my blade and I like to just kind of butt that up or bring that up against those pearls and pat it right along there so it looks like it's nice and snug. Now I'm going to bring in some of my light pink clay, and I'm going to start creating a few of my wonderful roses. I love my roses. I thought, why not add that in as an extra feature on this particular soutache? Once you have some of these roses made, I also decided to make a couple of leaves as well. And we're going to place this all into this design. And then I'm also going to add a small pearl that's going to be surrounded by that black ribbon clay. And that will be placed at the very bottom of this cabochon, as well as me bringing in my needle tool. And I'm going to make a small indent at the very top of this cabochon and at the very bottom. So from here, guys, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to let you guys watch my hands talk as I complete up the design here on this particular soutache pendant. Okay, so at this point, the pendant has been completely baked through. Check your area for how long when it comes to baking times. I mean, I live in a high altitude, very arid type dry desert, so my baking times are generally shorter. I go about 7 to 10 minutes at 275 degrees, but if you are more at sea level, yeah, it's going to take you longer. Anyways, I'm taking a couple of eye pins here and I'm just kind of getting them positioned on my clay. And that whole thing of where I made that indent on the bottom and on the top, now you understand why I did that, because I'm taking that eye pin and I'm kind of making a little channel for it. Mind you, it's going into the rest of the pendant and I don't necessarily need to have it there, but at the very opening, yeah, it'd be nice to have that. I'm also bringing in my liquid clay here and I'm just kind of putting that around on the back side of this pendant, so it's going to grab on pretty nicely, and that really helps a lot, along with that super glue. So I like to use them both in concert because the super glue will grab onto the fresh clay. It'll then be steady enough that I can bring in my needle tool and trace around on this particular pendant. You could tell I got off a little bit with that bottom little eye pin, but you just kind of scoot it back into place. It'll be just fine. Once I trace around on this pendant and I get all the little extra clay off of there, like right behind the little eye pins, I will go ahead and I'll try and cut that out if I can. I'm going to go ahead and rebake this pendant one more time. And again, it's about 7 to 10 minutes for me. It might be longer for you, so go ahead and rebake it. Then I'm going to bring in some of my little pointed back rhinestones and one particular flat backed type rhinestone, and I'll place those into this design, as well as bringing in my findings and my necklace chain, and finish up this piece entirely. So from here, I'm going to once again let you guys just watch my hands talk as I put together this Soutache stenciled pendant. All right, so now we're going to start working on those earrings to match up with our pendant piece. And again, I'm bringing in that mud clay that I had set aside earlier. I'm going to form up another teardrop, right? And like I'm using my blade here just to make it all look nice and neat and get it to where I really love it. Once I have that though, I'm going to come in and cut it in half and then bring it up with my blade. So I will have two pieces. Yes, it will be flattened on one side, and I thought that's just fine. I thought we want to have two earring pieces and having it where, guys, I love cutting things in half. What is it with me and cutting things in half? I don't know. I like it. It's so much fun, But anyways, I'm bringing in a little bit more of this stenciled clay that I have, and I'm going to form a piece over each of these sections of mud clay that I've already made from what was originally that single teardrop. Now that I have both of those halves covered in my stenciled clay, I'm going to bring in some more of those 6mm pearls. And, I was like, okay, wrap that black little ribbon clay that I had done originally right around each half, and then let that come up right against that flat side and then take it out just a little bit. And I needed to measure out that extra, from that extra part there, that extra black ribbon. I measured out an extra tail of that black to about 2.5 inches in length. And then I cut that particular piece off, the extra length off, and then take that nice little pearl and rolled it up in it at the top of this half on the earring set. I then repeated this process with the other half. All right, so now I've got these two earrings put together and I'm placing them up on my tile, and I'm going to bring in a set of some more pearls so that we can surround the bottom part of it. However, these are tinier. These are 4mm, and part of the reason why I went with a smaller pearl was because, one, these are earrings. I don't want them too bulky and too heavy. And I thought if I went with a smaller pearl, and I thought it would look just as good, and I think it would match up really well. The nice thing is it doesn't mimic or it doesn't overtake the pendant piece. I like my earrings to be a little bit smaller in nature when it comes to its pendant. I want that pendant to be a focal point, and that's why I thought that focal point really needs to shine. And in doing so, I thought too, these things can become really weighty on the ears, and you don't want that to be too much so. So I thought going with the smaller pearl will also help that out. So I go ahead, I create this little pearl section like I usually do, like I did with the original pendant, and I surround it up just as I did the pendant, and you're going to do that to the other half of the earring set as well. Once you have that in place though, I thought let's go ahead and add in just another little, you might say a curlicue if you will, to this particular set of earrings. And I decided to add that in on one side. I then add in another single kind of pearl, and it was one of the larger ones at the top. I'm going to add in a nice little rose, a few leaves, and so on, and complete up this set entirely when it comes to its design. So from here, I'm going to go ahead. I'll let you guys watch my hands talk another time and enjoy me completing up the designed area of this earring set. Okay, so at this point the earrings have been baked completely, and I'm taking a piece of fresh black clay. This has been rolled out on a number 3 setting, so not quite as thick as my original backing on the pendant. The pendant was rolled out on a number 1 setting. Hopefully I said that, and if I didn't, there you go. But anyways, I'm bringing in my eye pin, and notice here too, I'm bringing it down a little bit far into the black sheet of clay. The reason for that is because the one area of the earring goes above where the eye pin is. The thing is with these earrings, I had to kind of give myself, or I had to at least have an idea of where center might be on it, and it's not right where I had cut it in half. I need to have a decently even weighted piece so that it hangs straight. So in doing so, I had to make sure that I put it really right between the two circular clay swirled areas at the top. So I'm also then adding in a little bit of super glue, so when I do place it down, it's going to stick, and then I have the liquid clay so that it will fuse the clay better together. I then bring in my needle tool and cut out the piece entirely. Once I have both earrings cut out, I'm going to go ahead and add, or I'm going to bake these at 275 degrees for about 7 to 10 minutes. Again, check where you live for your baking times. And then once these have been cooled off, I'll bring in my little pointed back rhinestones and even my flat backed rhinestones and place those into the earring pieces. I'll bring in my earring findings and place them in. And then I'll also bring in my varnish, which I really didn't mention before. I bring in my varnish. I thought, let's go ahead and go over the painted part so it gives one a nice gloss and it protects the painted part on the earrings just as I did on the pendant. But from here, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to let you guys watch my hands talk once more as I finish up this set of Soutache earrings. All right, so this is the end result of creating my Stenciled Soutache jewelry set. Please use this for study and reference. And if you like this video, please like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. I'm always wondering what you're thinking. Otherwise, I am sending out my biggest hugs to each of you, and I hope you have a fantastic day.